Help if I would unmute my mic. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. It's July 16th, 2021. Our agenda today, we'll start out with success stories. We'll then go to our 30-second introductions. We'll have you put all your information in the chat box. We'll then go to our committee reports, workshop, job fairs, pit crew, interview success workshop, the career tip of the week. And then we will hear from our speaker this morning. So please, for those people who are on Zoom right now, please make sure that your full name is in the participant box. That way we can capture that information and make sure we mark you present here at the on the roster. If you don't know how to rename yourself, just hover over the little camera microphone and up should come rename, and then underneath it you can click the little box to say, remember my name for future meetings. So that would be very beneficial. That way, as you're networking and you're doing these things through different meetings, you can always, people can always find who you are. We will be using the chat box. So this afternoon, if you have any questions for our speaker today, please just open up the chat box. For those people watching right now on Facebook, you can put your comments into the comment field. I'm monitoring that feed and I'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. Please note this event is currently being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you happen to have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note the comments that you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2007, I took over the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007 when the gentleman who was leading it got a job. And so I've been doing that ever since. In 2008, I saw there was a need for a website to help people in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in their job search. So that's why I started careerdfw.org. To try to put everything a job seeker needed in one area in their job search. In 2012, after being invited to go to the White House, I started a second website called careerusa.org to help people outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. One of the things I found is that there really wasn't, and as far as I know, there still is not another website like Career DFW in the country. You know, churches may have their own little websites and there could be some little career groups, but as far as thinking about the bigger picture, there really isn't a lot of groups that are doing that. So that's why I started careerusa.org. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. You'll hear more about that in just a couple of minutes. Well, we like to start the meeting off with success stories. No one sent me any emails this week. Do we have anybody on the line who has landed? Do we have any landings? Any landings? Going once, going twice. All right, well, we're up to 67. And as far as I know, I think we're up to 67 landings for the year so far out of this group, which is way above last year's pace. So I know July and August tend to be slow, but I think towards the end of August and I know fourth quarter, it's going to pick up and there'll be a lot of landings here the rest of the year. All right, what we need everybody to do now is please open up your chat box and we want you to enter your 30-second introductions. And what I'll do is I will copy all these. I will put them out to an email this afternoon and hopefully you can look over the list and you can help someone. Find somebody on the list who's looking for a contact at a company maybe you can help with, and that would be greatly appreciated. So in the Zoom chat box or on the Facebook comment field, please put your name, comma, phone number, comma, email address, comma, position you're looking for, comma, 2 or 3 target companies, and then hit the return key. And I will get all those published this afternoon. For those people watching on Facebook this afternoon, or those people watching on Facebook this morning, I will go and delete your personal information from there so that it won't be hanging out there forever. So let's put 30 seconds on the clock. Well, I just was checking on the Facebook feed. Pamela Gorgeous is on the Facebook feed right now, and she says that Pamela has landed. She says she starts a temp to hire position on Monday. She said she received 2 job offers this week. So Pamela, hopefully you can send me some details via an email, and I will get that information added to our list right now. Let's see here. Anybody else? Nope, here we go. All right, so let's move on here. So if you haven't put your information in, please go ahead. Please continue to do so. All right, it's time to hear about job, career fairs, training, and workshops that are happening. Eldon is still out. His mother-in-law passed away a week and a half ago, and he's still taking care of business. He hopes to be back joining us next week. So I will sort of do this. All the information I'm about to pull comes off the calendar of careerdfw.org for those in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Hopefully this is a calendar you go and visit occasionally. Job fairs that are happening next week. The only ones that we know about, there's 2 of them. They're both teacher fairs. So if you'd like to be the International Leadership of Texas, if you want a teacher salary of $49,000 to $58,000, there's also extra stipends if you have math, SPED, science, and for grade level administrators. So if you're interested, there's a link where to do it at. There's this is the one in Dallas, will be in Garland, and then the one in Tarrant County is over in Arlington. It's the same organization, but they have job fairs, same time, 9 to 11 o'clock next Thursday. For special workshops that are happening next week, next Monday, Networking Mondays, we have a different speaker talking about networking every Monday. Join us from 1 to 2 o'clock. There's a web link, Zoom link, where how you can join the session. On Tuesday, there's a LinkedIn presentation. This coming Tuesday, Locke Alderson will be presenting LinkedIn for job seekers. So that's Tuesday at 1 o'clock. We do LinkedIn every Tuesday. Tuesday night at 6:45, the Career Search Network Recruiter Roundup will be happening. They have a bunch of great recruiters that will be on the call talking about different topics. This is put on by Foster Williams. So there's a Zoom link here. If you'd like to join the call, you're welcome to do that. It's always a very interesting sort of a round table of topics that they'll be talking about. Next Wednesday morning, the Who You Know Career Transition Summit from 10 to 12. It is online. You do need to register in advance. There's a registration link down here at the very, very bottom. Interviewing Wednesdays, next Wednesday from 1 to 2:30, we'll be on session number 12, difficult interview questions and cultivating confidence. So please join us next Wednesday from 1 to 2:30. There's a Zoom link in the box. And then next Thursday for Effective Resume Thursdays, online Resume Thursdays, our special speaker, Tony Bashera from Babbage & Associate. He'll be sharing the top 10 big mistakes of resume writing. Tony runs a big recruiting firm here, one of the oldest recruiting firms in Texas, and he will share the mistakes that he sees that he sees every day. So join us for that. All right, if you know somebody who just lost their job, please let them know about CareerDFW and CareerUSA.org. Right there on the front page, I saw there was like 360,000 people applied for first-time unemployment benefits this past week. If you know somebody who is out looking for a job, if they need some help, if they need some guidance, they haven't been out looking in years, tell them about CareerDFW, tell them to click on this. I just lost my job, what do I do now? It's a great little one-page there's an article that's got a lot of other handouts that will link to different things to help a job seeker get their job search going. All right, the practice interview team, Mark McDonald decided that he needed to take a Friday off, so he's on vacation today. So I'll talk a little bit about the practice interview team. This is a great way to practice your interviewing skills. Don't wait until you have an interview and then call up Mark and try to get an interview scheduled. Practice early, practice often. This is their motto. Just find a job description that you're interested in. Send your job description along with your resume and tell them the times that you're available 2 and 3 days out. So at this point, if you did it today, they'd be scheduling for Tuesday and Wednesday next week. It is totally free. So if you're interested, just send your resume and job description to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. Don't wait, like I said, everybody you'll get a panel interview. It'll last about an hour. It's about a half hour, 40 minutes of interviewing, another 15 or 20 minutes of feedback. You'll talk about your resume. So it's a great way to practice. You can do it as many times as you want. The record, I think, right now is 9 times. So the panel interview is all people who have been hiring managers in the past or currently hiring managers. So these are people who, can offer you a really, really good interview. So please, if you're interested, send your resume to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. If you're interested in a one-way video interview, I'm sure some of you have probably gotten an email saying, click on this link and follow the instructions, and you have to answer some questions, and there's nobody at the other end, and you may be timed, and you only have 3 minutes to come up with an answer, or you sit there and there's nobody there. We do have the ability to offer one-way interviews now through a professional system. So if you're interested, please send a request to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. Let them know you're interested in a one-way video interview. Don't wait until it actually happens. Go ahead and practice now. Practice, practice, practice. Good morning, Walt.
Well, good morning. And a couple of things before I get started. One is to congratulate Pamela for her success in landing. And Pamela, I remember your value proposition to be in the right hand, but I think I got a second one for you, which is I can whip your office into shape in 30 days. So congratulations again, Pamela. Good job. Also, one other thing that Mark coaches on is why you left your last job. For those of you that had some difficulty or challenges in leaving your last job, he specializes in that, and certainly I can help you with that as well. But he usually mentions that as one of the things that he's really good at. And he can help you with that. So what do? Well, I'd like to help you prepare for an interview. So you've got 2 ways to learn how to interview to improve your skills. One way is go on real interviews and go through a track of having several of them. And as you go through those, you can learn. But there's a kind of a price to pay and maybe a heavy penalty if you're kind of flubbing your interviews or not doing as well as you could. So let's practice before. So would you rather learn practicing or rather learn in real time? So I suggest practice. So I offer the Interview Success Workshop. What do you need to really do to prepare for an interview? How do you sell yourself in an interview? How do you differentiate yourself from other candidates? That's what I focus on in a very informal environment. I do it online. I usually do it on Tuesdays from 10 to 12. I'll take 2 people at a time. You can look me up on LinkedIn under Walt Glass to see what more details exist about the process of the interviewing. You have to register to attend. It's free. It does cost you a couple of hours of time, but I'll promise you that I'll make it well worth the time. So send me an email and I'll give you some availability dates and we can get you started. There's just no reason to have stress, anxiety, and fear while you're going through interviews. The reason why is because we're not prepared. We don't have confidence because of that lack of preparation and practice. So how do you build that skill and that confidence to have a successful hiring interview? It's simply by practicing. So come on down. We have a nice, informal, fun way to improve our interviewing skills, and I call it learning without squirming. Well, today, do you believe in deja vu? I swear I've said a poem or 2. If you don't know what that means, I'm here to spill the beans. It's practice interviewing is where this one leads.
Oops. Oh, the applause disappeared. Sorry. Applause. Sorry about that. And by the way, what Walt does is free. What the Pit Crew does is free. The one-way interviews are free. Everything is free. So please take advantage of those free offers.
Yes, and I also
good morning,
offer...
Kelly. It's time for the career tip of the week.
Good morning, everyone. The tip of the week is entitled 3 New Job Interview Questions Companies Are Asking Right Now. You should prepare answers for these questions because you probably never had to think about them before. The author is Monica Torres. Now that COVID-19 vaccines are widely available in the US, more employers want workers back in offices at least some of the time. According to a January survey of 133 US executives, only 5% believed that workers did not need to return to the office to maintain good company culture. Instead, the most common response was that employees should work at least 3 days in person. But a significant number of workers want to keep working from home for part of the week, and some never want to go back to an office at all. As a result, the needs and wants of workers and employers may be at odds, and hiring managers are asking new job interview questions designed to reveal discrepancies. Companies don't just want to know if you can do the job, but if your preferred work environment aligns with their return to office policies and plans. Here are the types of questions you need to prep for. Number one, how do you complete a project with minimal supervision? Daniel Space, who has worked in human resources over 20 years, currently consults with business partners on strategic staffing, including interview questions. As it relates to COVID, a lot of the questions that we ask are behavioral style interview questions that tell us your ability to succeed in a fully remote environment, he said. What kind of touch points do you need? How do you take direction with minimal supervision? How do you handle different time zones? How do you keep yourself organized and managed? If you made a sudden remote transition at the beginning of the pandemic, this is an opportunity to show how you adapted when your boss wasn't supervising you in person. Space said it can also be a way to share what you learned about old workflows that no longer suit you and which ones do. It's a chance for interviewers to engage in a dialogue about what they do and don't do and whether that works for you. Space said he's seen candidates who are scared to be forthcoming and believe that interviewers want to hear that they don't take any breaks. But he's been impressed by creative responses, such as a woman who shared how she used to work late because others worked late, until she realized, that's just not me. I'm a really early morning riser. By embracing that approach, it's been tremendous. My work style is so much better. Number two, can you share an example of how you had to adapt in your role during COVID? Adaptability and flexibility are always highly sought after skills by employers, but now there's a COVID twist to questions about these attributes. I'm hearing a lot of candidates being asked about adaptability. How did they adapt in the workplace during COVID? What examples can they provide to show their adaptability? Said Jessica Hernandez, a career development coach. The goal is to show how you rose to the challenge. Perhaps it's that they quickly flexed to learn new software programs to work virtually, or to meet a need with their clients who could no longer travel in the office. Thankfully, the career story you tell doesn't need to be tied to a current job if you don't have one. If you lost a job during COVID, you can talk about the new skills and experiences you gained or courses that you completed. Number three, do you have any concerns about returning to work, or do you prefer to work in an office or at home? Hernandez said that interview questions around work arrangements are one of the most frequent queries she hears about from clients. For some job seekers, it's been about their preferences as employers are trying to recruit talent. And from other job seekers, it's been about fit, when an employer needs an employee present in the workplace to complete the work, he said. When you're asked about your comfort level working in an office, Space recommends being true to your values so that you don't end up in a job that's a mismatch later on. If you say, I'm fully fine going back to the office, and then a month later you're not, you put the company in jeopardy because they don't want to necessarily take any adverse reaction against you. You put yourself in jeopardy because this is what you said, but now you're saying the opposite. Ultimately, if a company doesn't align with your values on working remotely, search for some other employer who is. If it means that they say, we don't think this is a right fit, we are requiring everyone to be back to work in August, it's better to keep looking for companies that are remote, Space said. We are in an unprecedented job store right now since COVID started. Tijal Wagadia, a senior talent acquisition specialist at MST Solutions, recommends asking recruiters what the expectations are for a given role. That way you can get a sense of what your future boss thinks before stating your preference. Keep in mind that some roles available now may start as remote and transition to in-person jobs in the summer. Recruiters may ask if you are okay with that. Wagadia said, stating an honest preference for continuing to work remotely may take you out of the running for some opportunities. But Wagadia said that being honest may do you a service in the long run. Do you really want to work for somebody that you know that you are fundamentally don't see eye to eye with? It might take you out of this position, but it might save you the grief later of constantly clashing with the manager. That's it, everybody. If you'd like to revisit this article, you can find it on the careerusa.org website, and I hope you have a good day.
Thank you very much, Kelly. All right, lunch report. Next week, we will not be meeting today, but next week we're going to meet. If you'd like to, you can join us on July 23rd at 12:30 at Jason's Deli. It's on the northeast corner of Parker and Preston. There's a Mooyah Burger, I think, right next door or something. So if you'd like to join us next week, we'll be doing lunch 12:30 at Jason's Deli. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we'll hear about simplifying the job search through trust from Ken Sher. I want to talk about our upcoming sessions after that. Next week, how writing a book can help your career. This is a very interesting presentation. I'm sure everybody here has a lot of knowledge, and putting all your knowledge down into written form and maybe writing a book that people would get some value of. So that'll be our presentation next Friday. In 2 Fridays, the new normal, job search and what has changed. This is from a retained search recruiter who's going to sort of share what he has seen over the last year. And then the first Friday of August, as we do the first Friday of every month, we'll have open forum. We'll just talk about whatever career issues that you have, sort of as a roundtable. We'll bring those up that day. So time for our main event now. Our speaker is Ken Sher. I happened to hear Ken presenting to a group out of the Philadelphia area a couple months ago, and I went, oh, this is great. We need to have him here in Dallas. I'm not really sure where Ken's at right now. I don't know if he's in the Jersey, Philly area, but Ken, I'll let you sort of take it over and you can tell people who you are.
Okay, I'm going to need to share the screen. Jeff, you need to give me permission, I think. Oh, maybe you gave it to me already. I'm sorry. And Jeff, you don't know where I am because I like to keep moving. I don't want people to know too much. Got to keep moving all the time. But actually, I am coming to you this week from the Poconos in Pennsylvania, the Pocono Mountains, and I'm very happy to be here to present to you all. And Jeff, thanks for inviting me. And I look forward to talking to you all today because I know the situation that a lot of you are in. You've all, many of you are not in this situation by choice, and there are all different kinds of names we have for it, being laid off, termination, furlough, and none of them are great, but it is what it is. And today, there's no stigma attached to being let go because there are so many people that are out of work. So I'd like to tell a little bit my story briefly because I think a lot of people go through this, and I also feel it's important that for you to know that you're not alone. And I know there are many people on this call today, but literally you're not alone in the feelings that you have. I spent about 25 years at Johnson & Johnson. I was in different sales training and leadership, sales and marketing leadership roles. I led the sales training and the leadership development teams. I led the J&J sales recruiting department where I learned a lot about how to find a job, what good candidates look like, et cetera. And then after 25 years, I ran into a new general manager at one of the operating companies I was working at. And he let me know in our first meeting, literally, that I was not his guy. He said he'd led several training and development departments, and I would never live up to his expectations, which from Leadership 101, I knew that was not a great way to introduce yourself to people. But I was hopeful that I would turn him around and we'd be good colleagues together, but that never happened. And at 52 years old, with 2 kids in college and 1 in high school, I found myself out of work. And it was a really difficult time for me. I feel like I was on the edge of falling into a clinical depression, frankly. I was looking into this black hole that I felt like if I fall into it, I may never come out. And so I recommend to people that if you're feeling that way, first of all, it happens. It's understandable, especially after you've identified with a role or a company for so long. And I went to see a therapist who helped me get through it. I went on antidepressants. I also went on a bender in New York City at my brother-in-law's apartment and woke up hungover on Sunday morning and realized this is not going to work. So I recommend the first 2 if you need it. I do not recommend that third approach to getting out of it. But I was able to pick myself up and dust myself off and figure out this job market, which was crazy. It was different then, and now it's different again, as was mentioned in some of the presentation earlier with the whole COVID stuff going on. And I was able to land 3 new jobs while I was still in my 50s. The last one was with Bristol Myers Squibb when I realized I was done with corporate America. And frankly, corporate America was probably done with me. And I hung my shingle as a career coach and executive coach about 6 years ago. But one of the things I will say is that, and it took me months to say this, and I remember the moment I was speaking to a group in the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania, and I said the words that I think I was actually fired from my job. And I got emotional about it. I mean, how could I be fired? How could I be out of work? J&J, my company, they kicked me to the curb. I was a little emotional about it, but I also realized that I wasn't struck by lightning. The world didn't end. It didn't matter. I was out of work. Call it being fired, laid off, terminated, doesn't matter. It is what it is. And today, it's really not a big deal. People are out of work. It happens. And I realized too that I was J&J before that. And with help and with time, I got to the point where I couldn't let this happen again. I would not allow myself to be defined by somebody else's opinion or expectations of me. And my message to you is you have to remember that yourself. Remember who you are and what you've delivered and what you will deliver in whatever your next role is. Now, one of the things I also got out of my J&J time was I realized that a lot of my success over the years was based on great relationships that I had. And these great relationships were built on trust. And I do believe that trust is it's the foundation of all great relationships, and great relationships are what lead you to success, whether it's personal success, professional success, or whatever. So today I'm going to talk to you about understanding how trust can play a role in your future, in the value and the value of what trust can bring to you, how you can build trust in yourself, in future hiring managers and future supervisors, and talk about developing a process that will help you be really successful with your job search. The first thing you need to do, though, is you need to get your head on straight. I mentioned to you how I was knocked for a loop when I lost my job, and I'm sure a lot of you experienced that as well. And it's easy to forget the value that you have. It's easy to forget the successes you've had in your past, but you've got to try to get there. And a lot of people are going to tell you that, and I am telling you that, but I also know it's not easy. It takes work. You're going to slide back into negativism, into doubting yourself. You've just got to keep going. You've got to control that negative voice in your head that tends to get louder and louder as things don't go well for you. And the reality is, in a job search, there are a lot more negatives than there are positives, but those positives are going to push you forward. And all you need is that one yes, and that's all it takes. So you can't worry about that. But I would also say to you that isolation is the enemy of the unemployed. Isolation is what allows that voice in the head to grow louder and louder and take over your psyche. And you need to get out, being on calls like this, networking with people, connecting with other people on this call, speaking to people live or virtually, helping other people is what will elevate you and make you feel good about yourself and positive and confident and remind you of what you have to offer. And so get out of your office, get out of your head, and you'll find that that'll be a positive for you. But the goal of trust that I see, I'm sorry, pardon me about that, I'm trying to move the pictures around here a little bit, is to first believe in yourself, to have confidence in yourself, to trust that you have what it takes to be successful again moving forward. And trust is about building that trust in the hiring manager, the interviewers, the networking people you're networking with. Building trust there will help you get to where you want to be. I believe so much in trust that I built a model, the Trust Success Model, and like all great models, it's an acronym. Trust stands for transparency, results, understanding, simplify, and team. And I'm going to go through each one of these, and I'm going to take a break after each one. So if you have questions, I'll give an opportunity after each step so that you can ask any questions. I can clarify and respond in any way necessary. But the T of trust stands for transparency. You know, right now you may be feeling down, you may be questioning yourself or wondering about things. But what you need to do is you need to be introspective. You need to take time and think back over your career. Think about all those things you've done in your career that you've loved doing, the things where you've been really successful. Take inventory of those projects you've been on, those teams you've been engaged with, that you've had success, that you felt good about. What are the skills that you brought there? What are the awards and rewards that you've gotten for those things? Literally take those and put them down on paper, write them out, put them on the computer, have them available to you. Because those are the things that are going to help you in a number of ways. One, when you're feeling down and you're doubting yourself, take out that paper, read it, remind yourself of what you have to offer. I literally would carry that piece of paper around with me because at times of the day, or maybe going into an interview, I would remind myself of the value I was bringing to that next conversation I was going to have. You also want to do that because that'll help you prepare for those interviews, to get your interview answers together based on the history that you have, professionally speaking. And then you also want to know, what is it that I need moving forward? You know, different times of our career, we have different financial needs. We have a different career direction we may want to go. I've found that people who are mid to late career oftentimes are looking to do something different, or they're recognizing that, you know, financially I'm okay. I do need to make money, but I don't need to make as much as I needed to. So by taking inventory and understanding what you want to do, what you've done and what you want to do, that will help set you on the right course. Then some of the things that you do need to think about that are a little different today than they were a year and a half ago are, what are the skills and competencies that employers are looking for? And that article that was read to us prior to my getting on here pointed to a lot of that stuff. You know, you think about it today, a lot of work is going to remain remotely, even if you're in a hybrid situation. So being able to demonstrate some technological ability is going to be important. And you want that to come through in your marketing materials, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your networking conversations and interviews. Emotional intelligence, my gosh, we all just went through quite a year and a half, and we're still going through it, whether it's COVID or the social unrest or political scene that we're dealing with. There's a lot going on, and being able to show emotional intelligence is important. And I always stress to my clients that, you know, there are a lot of really well-qualified people out there, and you may be equally qualified with 2 or 3 people if you've made it to the interview stage. So what's going to make the difference? The difference could be how you connect with that interviewer. Emotional intelligence could be that difference where they say, you know, all 3 of these people are great, but this one person really seemed to get it, whatever it is. And that could be the difference. Being able to communicate with teams that you're not in the same room with are important. Taking initiative because you're not with a supervisor every day, right? So they want to know, are you able to get things done without me looking over your shoulder? And all these other things are really much more important today than maybe they've ever been in the past. So as you're doing your inventory, think in terms of what is needed in today's post-COVID world that I need to make sure I emphasize in my communications. Now, once you do all that and you start to develop, who am I? What do I have to offer? That's when you begin to establish what your personal brand is. And your personal brand is what differentiates you from everybody else. And there are sometimes I get people who say, personal brand, that seems maybe gimmicky. Is that really that important? Well, branding has always been important. And for those of us of a certain age, and I find even you younger folks out there even get this, if I were to say to you the phrase breakfast of champions, most of you immediately get a picture of a Wheaties box in your head. That's branding. That brand was established in the 1930s, 90 years ago. So establishing a brand, who you are, what you mean to people is key. So the question you need to ask yourself is, what do people think about when they hear my name? When I leave that room, what are they thinking? Do they see me as a problem solver? Do they see me as a leader? Do they see me as what do they see you at? And if you're not sure, then you need to ask people, because you do have a brand, whether you know it or not. And ask former colleagues or supervisors or clients even, and get a consensus. What is it you think about? And if it's not the brand you want, then you need to figure out how you're going to change that. Whether it's promoting yourself through LinkedIn or the way you present yourself in networking conversations, you can change your brand, but you need to know what it is in the first place. And when you establish your brand, that's when you come out with your branding statement. And here are a couple examples for you. For me personally, I might start by telling someone, I help people figure out the job market to find their next opportunity. I'm a career coach, I'm an executive coach. I help people at all points of their career, whether they're looking for a new job or they're currently in a job and just want to do a little bit better at it. I help them realize their potential to achieve more than they ever thought they could. Now, you see, I had the words here. I'm not reading a script. I'm being conversational, and that's important. And also the environment, whether you're in a social setting, giving your branding statement, or an interview setting, it might be different, but this is a general approach. Another example might be, I'm a project manager who's known for delivering projects on time and under budget. And my colleagues have told me what they like best about working with me is I first look to really understand the desired outcome, and I focus on that relentlessly in everything we do. But I'm disciplined, but I'm also flexible. And the results typically are that we meet or exceed expectations. And that I would hope would continue a conversation with someone or lead to a great interview. And the last one example I'd like to give is I'm a master planner and organizer who's successfully run a household of 3 children and 1 spouse. And my fellow stay-at-home parents, they told me that they really admire the way I'm able to get so much done by getting a lot of different people involved, by making things challenging and fun. And these are the same skills I used when I was a project leader, project manager, whatever it might be at my job. And again, that would lead to a good conversation or an interview. So that's an overview of what being transparent with yourself and being able to position yourself for your next opportunity might look like. I'll take a quick stop here. Jeff, I don't know if there's anything in the chat or if anybody wants to just open their mic and ask a question. I'm open to that.
I don't see anything in the chat. There are no questions in the chat. If anybody has any questions, you can unmute your mic. Just hold down the space bar and ask away.
Okay.
I guess not.
All right. I'm going to keep going, and hopefully people will feel comfortable reaching out as we move on. So the next aspect of the trust success model is results. And by results, I really want to focus a lot on the resume, but we'll get beyond that as well. But, if you think about us human beings, we really haven't done too well with attention span. In fact, where in 2000, it was ridiculous to think we only have a 12-second attention span. Today, or 2 years ago, well, shoot, 4 years ago, my gosh, we have about an 8-second attention span. And that makes sense with all the media and the technology and everything coming at us from different ways. But that means we have a very limited time to grab somebody's attention. So you need to make sure that you start off and you hit people hard with your resume so that they do see, you do make a compelling case right off the bat, and their response is, I got to keep reading. I need to learn more. So you need to think, what is the type of resume you want to put together? There are three kinds. Chronological is the traditional, where you go from the most recent job down to the last. Functional is where you really don't have the specific jobs, the time frames there, but you are focusing on the accomplishments, the skills and things you had. And then the combination, which, surprise, is a combination of chronological and functional. Personally, and I think most people would say, combination is the way to go. Chronological will kind of get you there. Functional, from my perspective at least, I feel like it's kind of trying to hide something. You know, why aren't you giving me just your list of jobs there? What is it you're hiding? Are you old? Are you jumping jobs? You know, you're sending a message of, personally, I believe, deception. The combination one, the way I typically recommend, and typically because there's no one size fits all for people, I typically recommend to my clients that you would start with a summary, some real attention grabbing, compelling 1 or 2 sentences, 3 lines maximum on your resume about a little bit what you've done, but a lot of looking forward, what you're going to bring to that next role. I then recommend that you might have 2 or 3 bullet point accomplishments to prove that summary statement. The summary statement's almost like your thesis, and here's 1 or 2 concrete accomplishments with outcomes, results of what you've done. And then I often will suggest, then you might have competencies, skills, or something that will show, here's what I'm bringing to the table from a technical point of view. Now, the reason why I do recommend that is because I mentioned we all have such a short attention span. It's something called the fold test. If you could fold your resume in half, and that resume, that's all you're looking at, does that tell a good enough story to get someone to want to continue to read? Does it give enough information that they might even want to call you in for a conversation at that point? Because when we say that a recruiter only looks at a resume for 6 seconds, it's not that they're looking line by line, they're really scanning it. And they're seeing, is there enough here that I want to put more time into this? So if you could put that into a easy to read half of a page, that's where you want to get to. That will get you to that next step of further review, and then again, hopefully a conversation. 3/4 of resumes are gotten rid of because of an unprofessional email address. I know it's tough, but it was a sad day for me as well when I had to get rid of the kenstud@aol.com email address. It was a sad day for me, but you got to move on. We all grow up, right? Just so you know, I never had an email address like that. I would never have that, but you need to have a professional one. If you have an AOL email address, I don't care if you're 25 years old, people are going to look at that and say, boy, this person must be old. They must be stuck in the old days because they haven't updated their address. Gmail is really the best way to go, but really anything but AOL. You don't want to have a photo on your resume. I mean, people are going to see your picture and LinkedIn anyway, but besides the fact that it makes recruiters, I think, and companies nervous because they, if they reject you, the argument potentially could be made, oh, they saw my picture, they saw that I'm this gender, or this race, or this age, and they got rid of me. So you don't want to have that. Applicant tracking systems don't do well with photos. And by the way, applicant tracking systems don't do well with functional resumes either. And so, you also want to make sure that you have keywords in there, because those ATSs, the applicant tracking software I have here, they are looking for keywords. That's how they parse resumes. So you want to make sure that your results come through and that you hit on these things for your resume. Another thing that, by the way, can give away your, or at least send the message that you're older, is if you have a resume objective that talks about what you want to get out of this next role. Because that's what we used to do. That's old school. Today, you need to have a resume summary, which is not so much about you as it is about what you can do for the company. So make sure you're not stuck in your old ways and having that objective. I mentioned to you keywords. Now, keywords are, again, what an applicant tracking system will use to identify good candidates that would then get further screening by a human being. And if you're wondering, how do I know what those keywords are? Here's some things you can do. First of all, look for job descriptions or job postings for the jobs that you want. And look, what are the competencies? What are the skills they're looking for? What are the common words you see from one of those postings to another? Another thing you could do is use a program that's called wordart.com. That's wordart.com. And here's how you might use that. And there are other programs like this too, by the way. You would first start with your resume, copy your resume, go to wordart.com, and you would hit the import button. Now I'm going to be very specific about this because I am technologically limited and it took me a while to figure this one out. There are a lot of buttons on this page, but all you need is hit the import button, paste your resume in there, then you hit the visualize button, and it will create a word cloud like you see on the screen. The bigger the words are the words that appear most often in your resume, and those are pretty much your key words. So you want to see, first of all, are those the words that I want representing myself? Then what you could do is you can go and you can find 2 or 3 different job postings for that role you're interested in, take them one at a time and do the same thing. Go to WordArt, import, paste, copy, go to WordArt, import, paste, visualize. Do 2 or 3 of those separately and compare them. Does your resume have the same keywords as these job postings do? And if they don't, then you have to make some adjustments to make that connection. Now, as I mentioned, there are other programs out there. There's one, it's a great one called jobscan.co. And they give you a couple of free scans per month, but you have to pay for that one. That's why you need to consider whether you want to do that or not. But it does it for you. You paste your resume into one column, the job posting into another. It does the comparison and it will tell you what your percentage of match is. It also might give you some job suggestions, but it's really important that you do that. I mean, it's best if you have someone that can help you get your resume in there, but if you have to apply online and your resume is going to go through an ATS, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to keywords. Once again, considerations for this post-COVID world we're living in. You need to stress how you've taken initiative. Technology, your comfort level with technology. Now, for those of you who are not technologically savvy, and if I was asking to raise hands, my hand would be raised the highest. I want to take a little of that pressure off of you. You don't need to be an IT specialist. I want to give you an example. I do some volunteer work for a program called Philadelphia Futures. It's a mentoring program based in Philly. I love the program. If you guys were in Philly, I would be trying to sell you on getting involved in it. I mentor a couple of first generation college kids. It's very rewarding. But they asked me to do a video for them to send to other mentors or as a promotional video to recruit other mentors. So I did it. It took me a few minutes. I sent it to them and they thanked me for the content, but they also said, and thank you for sharing your technological ability with us, which made me laugh. And if I showed it to my kids, they would be cracking up over that one because I have no technological ability. But here's the point. Just by doing something like that, in your case, you may do a short video. You may talk about or put on your resume something about a spreadsheet you developed, or when you're interviewing, demonstrating a comfort level on video. Those things send a message that you are technologically comfortable. And that's important in today's world. So I also say this to people, and I don't want to make anyone feel self-conscious or uncomfortable. If you don't have your video, if you're not comfortable being on video, these kind of calls are when you should be on video. You shouldn't have your video off, because the more you do something, anything, the better, the higher your comfort level comes. So if you're uncomfortable being on video, that's the exact reason why you should be on video as much as you can. On these calls, with family, with friends, with networking, get comfortable with video because it might prevent some technology questions that you're not comfortable with from coming at you later on. So here's some other things here as well that are important in the post-COVID world. Embracing change, be ready to have examples of that. Adaptability, flexibility, those things are important. The other key to results, and this is, whether it's on your resume or in interviews, is you need to really talk about results. Too often I hear people focusing on their responsibilities, about the scope of the job, about I was responsible for this, I led a team doing that. It's really almost like right out of a job description. And that's important. On a resume, you need to have that for each job that you show on your resume. But the problem with it is that a lot of people, that's all they have. Even in the bullet points that follow, they think that they're accomplishments, but they're really not. And I often say to my clients, when I look at a resume that doesn't have accomplishments on it, I could put my name on the top of that resume and be fine with it. But when you put results in, that's what separates you from people. That's what makes it yours. That's what makes it so that I can't put my name on it because there's something you specifically did. So your bullet points, and I suggest that, as you go through your career, you might start, the first job might have 3, 4, 5 bullet point accomplishments. And as you go further down away from today in your career, you'll probably have less and less. Depending on how far back you go, you may not have any accomplishment statements, but that's another story there. But these bullet points are about outcomes. They're about results. They're about the impact that you had on that role, so that where you say responsible for leading a team of 10 salespeople for the Northeast region, that tells me that that's what you were responsible for. It doesn't tell me how well you did it. It doesn't even tell me whether you did that. So I need to know how. The accomplishment statements will contain words like leading to, resulting in, with the outcome of. And whenever you can, if you can have data, quantifiable results, that's the best. But I also know not everybody has that. Salespeople are lucky that way. They typically can show data. But it may be something like that you changed a process or a procedure. It may be something that you develop people and help them grow. It may be a team that you led and the outcome of that team. Everybody I have found has results, has outcomes. Often they don't know it. And it's through conversation and good questions being asked of them that they are able to pull those out. So going back to the taking inventory, if you can't do it on your own, you might want to seek someone out for help. The DFW group certainly has a lot of content and information there. There are career coaches out there like myself who do this stuff, but there's no lack of resources. And if you're looking at your resume and you don't see outcomes, then you need to do some work on that. Another quick thing that this also gives you an opportunity to demonstrate that you're technologically comfortable is video resume. And a video resume is not your written resume on video. It's really more of a door opener. And where this might be displayed, by the way, there's a couple ways you could do it. One, you could put it in the featured section of LinkedIn and show that. Or you might even send it as a door opener to somebody, as a part of a cover letter or an introductory letter, to put it in there as well. It's not your primary resume. It's less than a minute long, or a minute more or less. And it also allows you to demonstrate your communication skills, your technology skills, and you could use it as a link as part of your marketing materials. Again, reinforcing that you're comfortable with technology, and yet these are very simple, easy things to do. So before I go to the next step of the trust success model, are there any questions either about the results or transparency portion of the talk?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay, I must be nailing it, Jeff.
I have a question, Ken, on transparency.
Yes.
It's very important to be transparent, like you're saying. I agree with all that. But you'd like the company to be a little transparent, in terms of what they're really looking for, what they're not looking for.
Yeah.
And when I reached 40 in Silicon Valley, a lot of people couldn't get work, even in LA, in that area. When you reach 50, I could still get work, but not as plentiful. Then when you reach higher numbers, it gets much harder. Silicon Valley is really an exceptional place, mostly 20 and 30-year-olds running around. Yeah. But how do you, I know there's some companies that have these return to work programs
Mhm.
where you haven't done a lot of work in the last couple of years, and I'm one of those because I'm reasonably comfortable, but
Mhm.
I've just decided with COVID I really need to go back to work, and I've spent 20 or 25 years in technology, not as a coder, but managing teams and sales and all that stuff. And I know AARP has lists of companies, but they're typically not, technology oriented companies. And I'm
Mhm.
just wondering, to target, companies, is there a way to kind of research that out?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Kevin, and it does get harder as you get older. But I'm also glad to hear that you're not discouraged by it. I mean, maybe frustrated, but you also know it's
But it
out
goes
there.
back to you need one job. You
Yes.
don't have to please everybody. I'm not looking for 100 jobs.
Great point. And I'm going to get to it a little more in a bit, but I really think that when you're looking for a career change and or as you get mid to late career, networking becomes even more important because whether it's, applying, the statistics are 75 to 80% of jobs today are landed through somebody 10 to 15% come through a recruiter and 5% by posting online. And that makes sense. If someone's posting online, there's a stack of resumes and you're just one of those pieces of paper. But if someone comes in and says, hey, I got this guy, Kevin, you should talk to him. He's got a great history. He's a great leader and he might be what you're looking for. Your name goes right, your resume goes right to the top of that list. So my suggestion would be is to network and try to connect with as many people as you can and have those conversations, not looking for a job, but talking about their industry, talking about their business, talking about what you have done in the past, because I do believe that will lead to someone saying, you know what, Kevin, I don't have anything, but I know somebody you need to talk to, or let's stay in touch because we may need someone like you soon. And then clearly, as I'm sure you do, you need to emphasize your experience, your leadership, how, yeah, these 20, 30-year-olds are great, they're smart, they're driven, but they need someone who's grounded in business processes and procedures.
Right.
Does that help?
Yes, very good, Ken. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, anyone else? Okay, well, we're going to move on then to the understanding portion of the trust success model. And so again, it's important. There are a couple aspects to this, and this has changed a little bit. I used to only focus on social media, and I will in terms of understanding, but we do need to understand today's job market because it is different. There's a lot more competition out there. 80% of jobs are still remote, at least to some level. Hiring managers are stressed out. There are some industries that are hot and some are not. The hiring managers being stressed out, by the way, to me, this is your opportunity to connect. If you're going into an interview, I would say go into an interview with this thought process. I need to make this a conversation. I don't want to make it an interview where I'm down here and they're up here and I'm just trying to convince them that I'm the person for the job. You want to be on their level, having a conversation. And one way to connect with the manager is, hey, I know it's been tough for me. I've been out of work. I'm looking for a new job, but I know you're working as a hiring manager, but I'm sure it's been tough on you. Recruiting, your workload's probably changed. The stress of making sure you keep your job. How have you been doing? How are you handling it? Connecting with that emotional intelligence can be the difference maker for you. But some of these industries, it's interesting. When I first started giving this presentation about a year plus ago, these industries were down. These are ones that they were hiring, but if you needed to make sure that you were willing to wait because it wasn't going to be an easy trip to get hired. And yet most of these have changed. Hospitality now is hiring like crazy. I have a lot of clients from Marriott and they're all being called back by, not all, but a lot of them are being called back by Marriott. Retail has changed even a little bit. The tourism and leisure industry is starting to pick up again. And even though it may not be in full power until the end of the year or maybe even next year, it's on its way and hiring is beginning again. So a lot of these industries are up. These are the industries that have been up throughout the pandemic. So the only point here is that you just need to know where you want to spend your time and how much well, how much patience you may need to have depending on who's hot and who's not. The other thing about understanding now today is understanding working remotely. And everything you do sends a message. I've been talking a lot about showing your technological ability, but when you're having an interview, make sure that the environment is correct, that your background is good or it's blurred out the way I have my background, because I don't need you to see the mess or my bedroom or anything else that's behind me. You need to let people know in your household that you are interviewing so that you're not getting interrupted, because if I'm interviewing you and your spouse comes barging in to talk to you, and I'll be wondering, well, is this professional? Are they going to be able to handle this job working from home? So you need to think about all these things. If you're out of work, if there's any training or certificates you can get, show you're a continuous learner. If there's nothing else we've learned from the past year and a half, is that change is coming quickly every day. And so you need to show that you're a continuous learner and you're growing and that you have a work ethic, but also that you're able to balance work life. Again, in an earlier, the early part of this meeting, it was mentioned how they were trying to come across like, oh, I work 24 hours, 7 days a week, but that's not who they were. And that's not what the company was looking for either, because you can't last doing that. So you need to be able to send that good full picture of who you are and what you have to offer. But you certainly need to understand social media. You need to be comfortable with LinkedIn in particular. You need to have a good network. As I mentioned, that's probably where your next job is coming from. You want to attract recruiters to you, and you want to be able to find opportunities on LinkedIn. And you can do that with keywords, as I talked about, and with the messaging that you're sending across to people. LinkedIn is not a spectator sport. You need to be active. You need to be on there on a regular basis. If you're not, set time every day for 30 minutes, an hour. I'm going to be on LinkedIn. I'm going to post things. I'm going to repost. I'm going to comment. I'm going to get my name out there, especially in groups specific to the roles you're interested in, because in those groups are recruiters or other people who are at companies who may be looking for people like you. And the more they see your name on LinkedIn, the more active and professional you are. You're establishing your credentials as a subject matter expert, at least as somebody who really knows what they're talking about. Those are the people who get called by recruiters and hiring managers. I mentioned the key words about how you're going to develop your profile and your resume with keywords, but also think about what a recruiter would use to find someone like you or to fill a role that you may be interested in. It's just like Google. They put words in the LinkedIn search bar and they look at that first page. Who's showing up on that first page? The first 3 in particular, probably. And so you want to make sure you have the right terminology, that it's current. You know, the example I give, and I wish I had a better one right now, but hopefully you'll get this, is that if you were an administrative assistant, but you put the word secretary in your profile, you might not get found so much for administrative assistant roles, maybe for secretary of a board or something like that. But you need to use the right word, administrative assistant, in order to be playing in the right ballpark. So make sure you use those words, and you can test that. Put the search word in the LinkedIn search bar and see what jobs come up. Are those the jobs that you want to be associated with? If so, do it, because those are the words that a recruiter would use. The other thing you could do, this one's a little bit tricky, but not too tricky, is you can't search for yourself. You can't put your name in there and see where do I come up on the search. What you can do is partner with someone you're connected with, disconnect from each other, and then do searches for each other's names. If you're not showing up where you want to show up on that first page, tweak your profile, play around with it, add keywords, and then do the searches again until you get there. You can and you will change. I've done it. I have to admit, I haven't done it often enough, but I moved from page 12 to page 1 by doing just that. The only thing is, when you're done with that search, make sure you reconnect with that person, because clearly they're an important connection to you. But you do want to test yourself to see if you can get to the first page. Everything counts with LinkedIn. You need to have a good photo. It's the first impression you're going to make on a lot of people. It needs to be professional, from the chest up, looking at the camera and smiling. No mug shots. We don't need any mug shots. It's not good. I had a client who was a medical technologist. She had a picture of her and her 2 little kids, and they were all holding a 6-foot-long albino snake at the zoo. Not a professional picture. You need to make sure it sends the right impression. Your headline, those words right below your picture, that's where those keywords will come into play first. Make sure you have the name of the roles that you're interested in. It doesn't have to be the name of the role you're in or were in last, because a lot of times those are different. You know, let me see, a project manager in one company could be a project director in another company, but they could be the same role. So make sure your role is commensurate with what your responsibilities are. The summary or about section, that's really a place where you get to market yourself. It should be written in the first person. And one thing that's really important to know, if you look at most people's summaries, if they're filled out in full, only the first 3 lines will show unless you click the See More button. So those first 3 lines need to be really compelling, need to be interesting, need to cause that reader to say, I've got to read more. I got to hit this See More button to see what else they have to say about themselves. So if you're just putting in, I'm a project manager with 10 years of experience, and all the regular jargon that might go in that may not be it, that might not do it. But if you put in there something maybe similar to that positioning statement I mentioned earlier, I'm a project manager known for delivering projects on time and under budget, and I've delivered projects as large as $50 million to a Fortune 50 company. ... I want to see more. I'm clicking see more to see what else you have to say about yourself then. We talked about keywords, recommendations, get recommendations, give recommendations on LinkedIn. Now, there's a way to get recommendations to make sure you get what you want. You could certainly just ask people, would you write me a recommendation? And that's great. And they might very well do it. And they might give you what you want. And that would be okay. But the best way to ask for recommendation is this. First, you would do it probably not through LinkedIn to start. You do it by email or maybe calling them and say, would you mind writing me a recommendation? And if so, would you mind pointing out my leadership skills, something about that? Or maybe you ask somebody else, can you tell about my problem solving skills? Maybe you'll ask another person, a client, can you write something about my customer service? The idea is you make sure you get the message you want that paints the picture of you, that tells your personal brand from somebody else's point of view. Now, the other thing you could do, and this is hard for a lot of us who have some level of humility, is you can offer to write it for them. And that might sound weird, and I got to tell you, writing them is weird to write. Let me tell you why I'm so great. I have a problem with that, but here's why it works. First of all, people are busy. They want to help you. They want to write a recommendation for you. But after they hang up the phone or get off email with you, then they have to answer their 50 or 100 emails. They have to take care of personal things with their family or friends. They have projects they have to do. And all of a sudden, your request is a distant memory. Or they want to do it, but they don't know how. I don't know what to write about this person. What can I do? What I found is if I say, if you're agreeable to write this, I've jotted down a few lines for you to make it easy for you, because I know you're really busy. All you have to do is edit it, put it in your own voice. And once you do, then I'll send you an official LinkedIn request. All you have to do is copy this email, paste it into LinkedIn, and it's done. And then you will get exactly the recommendation that you want. And then the last thing I would say to you, though, is also give recommendations. Don't just get them. I had one client who had received 10 recommendations. He'd given 0. What message does that send? That sends a message that he's a taker. He's not a giver. He's not looking at other people. He was far from that, but that was the message he was sending. So give and get recommendations. Get involved in groups, as I mentioned earlier. Don't stop. Keep at LinkedIn. Schedule it on your calendar that you're going to be engaged and involved. Find connections. Find connections of connections. Dig deeper and deeper. I'm going to take a quick break now. We're starting to wind down. Any comments or questions about any of what I've spoken about so far?
There were a couple questions in the chat. Daniel says, how do you get company attention when you're older? How do you get companies to reach out to you?
And that is a big challenge. Well, I think one way is if it's not I mean, the best way is through networking. That's just it. Somebody needs to help you say, I know you got to talk to this person. Daniel knows what he's talking about. He can help us, or he can help you. The other way is, I think a lot of times people do what you're supposed to do in a job search. I'm supposed to send a cover letter, and it's the cover letter supposed to look like this and sound like that, and I'm not supposed to do, get out of line. Well, the ultimate goal is to land a job, but the first goal is to stand out from the crowd. So Daniel, you might try a more interesting cover letter. Instead of saying, dear sir or madam, I'm writing to you about XYZ position. And I'm not even talking about a cover letter. I'm talking about like, get in there. Dear sir or madam, I'm writing to you about your company and how I always have loved your company. You might say something, maybe you get bold. You might say, dear sir or madam, I am a XYZ. First of all, if you can get their name, that's always key. Dear Jeff, I'm writing to you as a 30-year professional. I am old, and that is why you should be talking to me about how I can help your company. I mean, that was just top of mind, but why not be bold? Go out there, embrace it. If they think you're old, or you think they think they're old, say that's exactly why you want to hire me. I've seen someone who wrote, Marriott person told me they got the job by saying, dear Mary, ever since I was 8 years old and took my first vacation at a Marriott resort, I have been enthralled by the customer service that Marriott offers. And it's because of that I'm writing to you to talk to you about how I can contribute to the great service you give your customers. My point is, do something different. Another client of mine, we worked together, she put together, it was a 6 or 8 page PowerPoint presentation. And it started with who she was, it had a couple of her attributes, had 1 or 2 of her success stories, it had her leadership philosophy, and then it had a nice version of her resume at the end. She printed it in color, put it in a small binder from a soft binder from Staples, and she mailed a hard copy to different companies and managers that she was able to find. And she got 2 interviews out of sending out 10 of those in the first place. And she actually landed a job because she opened the door by doing something different. So Daniel, I think that's my suggestion to you. Step out of that box. Don't do what everybody else is doing. Network and be creative and see if you can open some doors doing that.
Ken, great. Mike on Zoom says, I believe we need to take results from Myers-Briggs and Strength Finders and incorporate those into your success stories.
Mm-hmm. And that could very well do it. There's Myers-Briggs, there's DISC, whatever works for you to separate you from the crowd. Now, some companies may not even know what Myers-Briggs is, so that might not necessarily do it, but it's how you present yourself. So I would say that could be a very successful approach.
Great. I think that's it.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to go into the simplified portion of the trust success model. And this is about really focusing on interviewing. I mentioned the average attention span is 8 seconds. Well, if you think about it, an average speaking adult, although maybe not me so much this morning because I had an extra cup of coffee, so I may be going a little faster than usual, is 150 words per minute, 2.5 words per second. So I say you have 8 seconds of attention span before you lose me. 8 times 2.5 words is you have 20 words to grab someone's attention. What are the first words you're saying to someone? Now, certainly going to have the normal, hey, nice to meet you, et cetera, et cetera. But what are those first words as part of that interview process that you're saying? Because there's also something called the primacy recency effect. And that is that people remember most what you say first and what you say last. So really think about those first words. It's probably something about your personal brand. And then what I also recommend on an interview is when you're done and you've asked your questions and you've closed them by reminding them how passionate you are for the job and how much you want the job and what the next steps are, the last thing you say, I would suggest would be, and if there's one thing you remember, Mr. and Miss Interviewer, please remember that I am this, or I will bring to your company that, because that's one of the things they're going to remember most. There's this thing in sales they call home base. What is that one message? If they remember nothing else from what you talked about, what is the one thing you want them to walk away from? Because that could be the difference maker for you. Now, I believe in what I call the 3 Ps of interviewing. Prepare. You need to really be ready. You need to do your research. Look at annual reports, look at news stories, look at LinkedIn, Google the heck out of that company, that industry. If you know the person's name, LinkedIn, find out as much you can about them. Have a process. I am a big believer, and I'm going to go into it in detail in a minute, in the STARS process for answering interview questions. But by having a process, it gives you a consistent approach to answering questions. So if you get hit with a question in an interview that kind of throws you for a loop, you can go back to this process. Okay, how am I going to answer this question? And it will take some of the pressure off of you. And speaking of pressure, interviewing is often one of the most stressful things you can do. But if you practice, if you get those words out of your mouth, get them right before you get to that interview, you will be more confident. And when you're more confident, your stress level will be down. Sun Tzu was a 5th century Chinese military strategist, wrote the book, The Art of War. Now, I'm not saying that war and business are equal. Clearly, they're not. But the strategies that he used are often used in business today. And in fact, this book is a perennial top 10 business book on the best-selling list. And he said the victorious warriors, they win first and then go to battle, while defeated warriors go to war first and then try to figure out how to win. And all you have to do is think about, many of you maybe have seen athletes where they're laying on the floor in the locker room, they got headphones on, their eyes closed. They're playing the game before they get on the field, because then there aren't that many surprises. So if you're really preparing yourself and thinking about what might happen in this interview and get that done before you even get to that interview, you're going to be in much better shape than you would be otherwise. So you want to do that. And I would also say this, if there is a question that you hope they don't ask you in an interview, you better practice that even more than the other questions, because you know they're going to ask you that one. In an interview, especially virtual interviews, everything matters again. Your video quality, make sure you've got a good connection. Make sure that your background is good. Make sure you're making eye contact with the camera and not with the screen. Be positive, be energetic. I know it's different being on video than it is being in person, but you've got to pretend that it's the same as being in person. Be yourself, be energetic, be personable, stay focused. Make sure your environment is clear. Everybody in the house knows you're having that interview. Be confident, but don't be cocky. Now, I mentioned the process. You may be familiar with STAR. I call it STARS. I'll explain why. I don't care what process you use. Please do have a process, though. It makes life a lot easier. The reason I love a process, and STARS in particular, is because first, it allows you to tell a story. And storytelling is very compelling. Sorry to jump in on your poetry there. Sorry, the person who did the poetry, but storytelling is compelling. That's the truth. People remember it. We've all loved stories since we were little kids. Tell good stories. The other thing I love about a process is it puts your answer in a little bit of a frame. Now, I don't know about you, but when I get stressed, I can ramble on and on. I remember being in an interview as a candidate, and I got asked a question, and I started to digress just a little bit, and then a little bit more, and a little more, and all of a sudden I was way out here. And that voice in my head was screaming, get back, you've gone too far. And I couldn't get back because I couldn't even remember the darn question. And I even had to ask the interviewer, I'm sorry, what was the question again? That is not a good position you want to be in an interview. So by having a process, it gives you a beginning, a middle, and an end, as long as you stick to that. So the way STARS would work, here was the situation I was in. I had to teach I was a sales manager, I had to teach a rep how to get through to a hard to see client. So actually the situation was that the rep couldn't get in to see the client. My task was to teach her how to do it, because I couldn't do it for her, because then she wouldn't be able to do it on her own. So the actions I took was, we took some time out of the field. We talked about the situation. We practiced. We role played a couple of ways that she might try to get in. And then once I was sure she was comfortable, I let her go off and she tried to do it on her own. I got a call from her a couple weeks later, here's the results, that she actually not only got in to see the doctor, this was a doctor call, but she was able to convince her to do a trial of the product for next month. And my rep was so excited about that and pumped up that she was excited she's going to go try that with all different prospects in her territory. And the results were great. And the so what, regardless of what process you use, folks, this is, I think, a key differentiator. The so what allows you to tell the person, here's why that story is important to you. It paints the picture of you in that role you're interviewing for. It tells the interviewer exactly what they can expect if they put you in that role. It doesn't leave anything open to interpretation. Now, you may think that story I just told you, well, of course, you were telling that story because you wanted to show them what a great coach you are. Maybe or maybe not. But what I actually would say is the reason why I told you that story is because you need a manager in this role that is not going to go out there and do things for the reps, but is able to identify where their areas of development are, to help them develop a plan to get better at it, and then help them execute a plan. And I am that person for that role. And like the difference could be this. I mean, you may think, well, obviously that was the answer. Well, obviously is not a very good word. What's obvious to a Democrat is not obvious to a Republican today. So you need to spell out, here's why I gave you that answer. Here's what it means to you if you hire me for this role. Very important part of whatever interview answer you give. Now, you're never going to be able to prepare for every question that's going to come on an interview. But what you can do is identify the competencies through the job description or just your knowledge of the role that are associated with that job. Then what I would suggest is you write out your STARS answers, 5, 7, 10 answers. Write them out, type them out, practice them out loud, and then place them under one of these competencies. Now, you may have the same STARS answer under different competencies. I mean, problem solving and analytical skills, they're pretty close. But the idea is this: if you have your ideas of where you're going to go with a particular question, when you're in that interview, you get asked a question, you could say, oh, okay, I know they're asking me about my decision making. I've got 2 stars I can give them. Or they may ask you about something that, oh, they're asking about performance management. I actually didn't put stars under there, but I could take this answer, just tweak the introduction, and I've got myself a performance management answer. So just make it as easy as on yourself as possible. Know where you're going to go with have answers and know where you're going to go with them. And then when you're in there, it's going to reduce your stress because you'll be like, hey, I don't care what you ask me. I got a STARS answer ready to go. So bring it on. Whatever you want to talk about, I'm ready. I'm confident. Stress is down, confidence is up. So I'm actually going to jump into the last part of the process because that'll finish it off. I'll ask for any other questions, and I have just 1 or 2 slides to put a final wrap on this talk. But you need to have 2 types of team in your job search. First one, you're going to be, if you may still be there or you may have gotten out of it, but there's still an element of, oh my, how can I be unemployed? I've been working for 20 years. I've been working since I was 16 years old. I can't believe I don't have a job. Well, you need family, friends, loved ones who are going to be there to pick you up, to support you, to let you know that you're okay. You're still got a lot to offer, that are going to be there to celebrate with you when you have those good times, those good interviews, when you get that job offer. You need to have a personal social network. And then, as I mentioned earlier, isolation is the enemy of the employed. So you need to have a professional network. They're also the ones that are most likely going to help you land your next job. So look to former colleagues, look to alumni. There's a great search tool on LinkedIn where if you click on your college logo, it takes you to the college LinkedIn page. If you click on alumni, it will show you then where they live and what they studied. And you could filter that down. And then this is the best part. There's a next button. If you hit that next button, it tells you what they do. So you could actually filter it to graduates of Rice University who live in the Dallas, Texas area, Dallas-Fort Worth area, who work in operations. And then when you scroll all the way down, you'll see all the profiles of all those people. And you could reach out to them and say, hey, came across your profile. We're both Rice grads, living in Fort Worth, working in operations. I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. more than likely they're going to accept that invitation. Then you follow up and say, hey, I'd love to talk to you and learn more about you and make this an active networking connection. Could we have a short networking conversation? Now, I have to tell you, the first part of that, the invitation, you might get 6, 7, 8, 9 out of 10 people say yes. When you ask for a conversation, you might only get 1 or 2 people who even respond to you. Personal pet peeve of mine, if I'm a first connection, I would expect a response, even if it's to say, sorry, I don't have time for you, but that's another story. But all you need is 1 or 2 of those networking conversations to lead to an opportunity. So continue, don't take it personally when they don't respond, build your professional network, because most jobs are landed that way. So before I get to my final slide or two, Jeff, any other questions or comments that I can help with?
Nothing in the chat window, but is there anything, if anybody has any questions, please open your mic and hold down the space bar and ask away.
Okay.
If
Well,
not, all right.
All right. Like I said earlier, hopefully I'm nailing it and haven't lost people. But and it was also mentioned by earlier that you're going to see a lot of failure. You're going to see get a lot of no's. But who cares? All you need is that one yes, that one job. And you never know when that's coming. You know, you could be discouraged, feel like, you know what, I'm going to give up. But it could be that next call. It could be that next networking conversation, that next interview. Don't give up. Stay as focused and positive as you can. I really believe that the trust success model, when followed, can really help you focus and be successful with your job search. I am very happy to help you in any way that I can. If you'd like to, please reach out to me. I offer a complimentary coaching session. I'm not a big salesperson, and much to my wife's chagrin, she says, you really got to sell harder, Ken. I don't sell. I will help you. I will coach you as if you're my client. At the end of the call, if you want to talk about working more together, we can discuss it. If not, I'll consider it a great connection. And I love helping people, so I consider it good karma. So please, this is not an idle offer. If you'd like to talk, reach out to me. Jeff, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak here. And thank you very much to everyone for paying attention.
Ken, thank you very, very much. Any questions or anything before we move on? I guess not. Ken, can you send me the e-guide if you, and I'll put it out. I'll send it out to everybody who's on the call this afternoon. So
yes,
been on the call.
I will do that. Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, if you
Okay.
forward that to me, I'll forward that on to everybody else along with your contact information.
That'd be my
All
pleasure.
right. If you want to reach out to Ken, you can do so. Here's a copy. Here's what his LinkedIn profile looks like. Please let him know that you saw him here this morning at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. I don't know about Ken, but I know that if you send me a request to connect, if you don't send me a personal note, I don't connect with you. So I'm assuming Ken probably does the same thing because you want to know how we know each other. So that's Ken's LinkedIn profile if you're trying to find him on LinkedIn. Let's see here. Next Friday, our speaker is going to talk about how writing a book can help your career. I heard Rich talk a couple months ago. Once again, it was just like, oh, that's a very interesting sort of premise about how to, once again, you're documenting your knowledge. You're putting in writing, which even if you don't publish it, you can, you know, it'll help you sort of define maybe who you are and what you can do. If you have not put your 30-second introductions into the chat box, please do so I can capture that information. I will publish it all this afternoon along when I send out the roster with everybody who's here today. So if you haven't done that yet, please do so. For those on Facebook, I will delete your personal information off of Facebook as soon as this is over with. Career DFW and Career USA, we're putting on training 5 days a week. This afternoon, Women of Wisdom will be meeting. They're actually meeting at noon today, not 1 o'clock, at noon. So just 1 hour, noon Central Time. If you'd like to, number one, you have to be a woman. Number two, you have to either want some wisdom or have some wisdom to share. And if you'd like to be invited, it is by invitation only. Please send an invitation to WOW@careerdfw.org. WOW@careerdfw.org. The reason it's by invitation only is because they're trying to keep the group down to 20 or 25 people. There's a lot of interactivity between the group, and they're not looking for 50 people. It'd be too much for them to try to moderate. Next Monday, Networking Mondays, we'll have a presentation on networking, so join us next Monday. Next Tuesday for LinkedIn Tuesdays, how to use LinkedIn for job hunting, strategies to get results. That'll be with Locke Alderson. Next Wednesday, we'll be on session number 12 of our interviewing sessions, difficult interviewers and difficult questions, and how to cultivate confidence. So we've gone through 11 sessions so far. This will be session number 12. And then next Thursday for Effective Resume Thursdays, the top 10 big mistakes of resume writing. This is with special guest speaker Tony Bashera. Tony runs Babbage and Associates, one of the oldest recruiting firms in the Dallas-Fort Worth in Texas, I think. So he'll be around. The firm's been around since I think 47 or something. So Tony, he sees hundreds of resumes on a daily basis, and he'll tell you what mistakes he commonly sees, big 10 mistakes. So this session has been recorded. It will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. It'll take a couple hours for YouTube to process the video and get it up there. So please, we'd really ask you, please follow us on Facebook. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. When you do that, it opens up more features that both of the platforms allow us to use. On the Career USA YouTube channel, it looks something like this. Be sure to click on playlist, because that way you'll see the 5 or 6 playlists that I've put together. And you can see one there for resumes, interviewing, LinkedIn, North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group speakers. This topic will be on the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group speaker. But don't click on that video. Click down below where you see the red arrow where it says View Full Playlist. And then up will come a list of all the different dates along with the topics that we talked about every day. It should be in chronological order with the newest one on top. And if not, click on that little sort button and it'll move the new one to the very, very top. So if you can go back and watch any of these videos anytime you'd like. So thank you very much for joining us today. Ken, thank you very, very much. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
That was great.